forecast for the week of February 2nd, 2025. Not to startle you or anything, but by the time this week is over, by the time we get to February 9th, we will be 1/9 of the way through 2025. That's 11%. It's actually 11.11111% of the way through. Yeah, just just mentioning that. Although January did seem to take kind of a long time. Anyway, let's not talk about that. Let's talk about what's going on this week. And the highlight of the week, rather than do it in order, let's do it. The highlight of the week is Jupiter's station to go direct. That happens on Wednesday. And we'll be feeling it really, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. Jupiter ends his 4-month retrograde, which began in October, which was also uh, at the time that Pluto changed direction. We had sort of Jupiter and Pluto kind of thing. This time around, it's more like Jupiter and Uranus. The energy of Jupiter's station to go direct really kind of dovetails nicely with Uranus's station to go direct last week. That was last Thursday. And so just as that Uranian energy is coming down, the jovial Jupiterian energy, the right word is jovial, but I like to say Jupiterian, the Jupiterian energy starts to build. These two planets go well together. They're different, of course, but they have a lot of things in common. There are a lot of things that astrologers, we use the term rule. There are a lot of things that are associated with Jupiter, and they may also be associated with Uranus. I was thinking of all these great examples, and then it occurred to me, astrology itself is traditionally a Jupiter ruled discipline. Well, discipline is sort of the wrong word for astrology, I'll tell you what. But traditional astrologers would say that Jupiter rules astrology, and now modern astrologers have tended towards saying that Uranus rules astrology, along with a lot of other things. There is this kind of, is Jupiter the old ruler and Uranus the new ruler? These planets, they tend to have a lot to do with when they get together, and they sort of are getting together this time. They're not aspecting each other, but they're both stationing. Have a lot to do with technology, and that's been, of course, the big news over the course of the last week or two. Particularly dramatic effect in financial markets. Um, Jupiter and Uranus also have what they have in common above everything else, I think, is they're very progressive, right? They're very forward looking, both of these planets. Um, so that they kind of give you that sense that the better times are ahead. It's a real different kind of thing than, let's say, Saturn, which has a rather conservative, traditional feel, or Neptune, which is sort of like idealistically romantic. The better days are all in the past, and that's this is Saturn and Neptune are definitely out there arguing that we're in the Kali Yuga, and this is the degenerate age, and everything is getting worse, and the golden age was in the past, and everything from the past was better in some way or another. And Jupiter and Uranus are like, no, 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 we're going to make the future better. Things are going to be better as we go forward. Jupiter stations will be feeling quite a bit this week. They give a sense of optimism, faith in the future, help us to take a leap of faith. Generally speaking, they are progressive. As I said, they give you that sense of like, we're going someplace. We can do this. Now, of course, everybody feels that energy. As I often say, it works for you. It works for, if you're a jerk, it works for you also. You also have faith in yourself and faith in the future, right? It's not, it's a value in terms of the faith, but it's valueless in terms of how it gets applied. So, everybody feels it. And indeed, people could feel a little full of themselves. And Jupiter and the sun were aspecting each other last week, which already kind of got this vibe going. That was exact on January 3rd. That was exact on Uranus's station. So again, the sort of these energies of are moving here, and the feel here from middle of last week through pretty much the end of this week is one of kind of like emerging and kind of, here we are, let's go forward, let's do something. And again, everybody feels it. It's not like it means good times for you. It means the sense that everybody sort of is looking towards the future, looking towards what they can do. The next thing that I want to get to, though, which is sort of an overlapping kind of feel to this, is that Venus on Monday, February 2nd, Venus enters Aries. Now, Venus has left Pisces. She recently met with Neptune over the weekend, which sort of, Venus conjunct Neptune at the end of Pisces. That's kind of a dreamy sort of energy. Oh, excuse me. Jupiter, that's rude. I'm sorry. I should have shut the thing, but I'm not gonna. Venus conjunct Neptune at the end of Pisces, a dreamy sort of energy. The feel there is, put everything into soft focus. Of course, soft focus sounds nice if things are going well. If things are not going so well, then I suppose, what's in the fog? What's up ahead in the fog? What are those shapes that we see coming out of the fog, right? That it can work that way a little bit too. So, if it wasn't a great time for you. Venus conjunct Neptune, very, very difficult to get accurate values on things, and hold on to that for a little bit. Very hard. The experiential end of it is great, but very hard to get a real sense of the value of things. Now, Venus gets into Aries, and this is traditionally not a good sign for Venus, but we don't really want to pay too much attention to tradition. After all, we're under the spell of Uranus and Jupiter, and we don't want to get all traditional on things, right? We don't listen to Saturn, what Saturn has to say about it. So in Pisces, Venus is really less about personal connection, less about you and me type of thing. Even she's goddess of love, but in Pisces, it's a sort of open, agape, compassionate kind of thing. And then in Aries, when Venus gets into Aries, now this is a fire sign. It's the first sign. It's Mars's home sign. You know what I'm saying here, right? This is a lot of passion. This is excitement. This is eros rather than agape. If you know, I somehow feel this is going to come back and bite me for saying this, but who cares? If Venus in Pisces is Mother Teresa, Venus in Aries is Madonna. We've got very, very different vibes going on over here. So Venus in Aries should be great for socializing, should be great for romance, should be great for things that are exciting. It's definitely much more a let's get out and socialize, let's get out and connect with others type of thing. It's interesting that this happens. It's just coincidence. This one I'm going to say it is a coincidence. Anyway, there's no coincidences, but maybe this one's a coincidence. It happens on February 2nd. Now, February 2nd is Candlemas. It is one of the mid-season holidays. It is one of the mid-season holidays. We're halfway between the Capricorn solstice and the Aries equinox. I believe in Ireland and maybe elsewhere that it is considered the beginning of spring, not astronomical spring, not astrological spring, but it's considered the beginning of spring. They're on the west coast of Europe and they get different weather and so on. So things might like now in the US, it is Groundhog Day, and the bizarre but cute tradition is that if the groundhog in Punxsutawney, Pennsylvania, Punxsutawney, Pennsylvania. That's a good name. Punxsutawney, Pennsylvania. Sees his shadow, then it will be an early spring. But if he doesn't see his shadow, it will be 6 more weeks of winter. I think I got that right. Of course, nobody really knows if the groundhog sees the shadow. Well, you know these things. You don't need me to tell you this. Anyway, Venus going into Aries, I'm feeling like, wow, that's sort of like, the sun is out and, springtime is here. Except, of course, for two things. And the first thing is that Mars, the ruler of Aries, is retrograde all the way out to February 23rd. So we're still, even with Uranus direct and Jupiter direct, and now Venus in Aries, and still in all, there's a little drag on things because Mars is pulling backwards. And that's the thing. And the other thing that's worth noting is that Venus typically spends about 3 weeks in each sign. She's only going to get in the entire month of February out to 10 degrees of Aries. She's going very, very slowly. And that means that she's going to retrograde. And indeed, she's retrograding. She's retrograding on March 1st. In Aries, in March's month. Yeah, it doesn't maybe I'm making too much out of it. But Venus is in the shadow of her retrograde. That's the point that we have to keep in mind. So again, Venus gets into Aries and we're feeling this is great for romance and socializing. Yeah, maybe not. Another consideration for those without romance and such on the mind, another consideration is that the Venus Neptune thing sort of could get you to think, a little indulgence would be a good idea, some luxury item type of thing. And Venus in Aries certainly has that let's go ahead and do it kind of thing. But because Venus is retrograding and Venus is going to retrograde for 40 days, so like I don't want to start the Venus retrograde early. But if you are looking at things like luxury items and the high ticket stuff and pretty much like eggs, high ticket stuff like eggs, this might be a time to sort of hold off and see what happens. Going a little bit later in the week, when we get to the weekend, on the 7th and 8th, well, the 8th and the 9th, but let's say from the 7th to the 9th, we have some kind of fun energy for that. Well, I don't know if it's fun. It'll be helpful energy for relationship. Venus is sextile to Pluto, and Neptune is trine to Juno, right? Yeah, Neptune is trine to Juno. Uh, Generally speaking, again, for partnership, relationship stuff, this is nice. We should be able to work things out. Venus Pluto is interesting because Venus is in the very excitable and fiery sign of Aries, and Pluto is in the sign of Aquarius, a little bit cooler, but also very open. There's a lot of openness, a lot of possibilities here. Again, but Mars is retrograde and so on. The Juno Neptune aspect is that should help in terms of existing relationships and partnerships. Again, I think that it just sort of puts things into a little bit of soft focus, which should be good. Now, the Venus Pluto thing has to be looked at carefully because when Venus starts retrograding, she's going to go back, and on March 25th, I believe, is going to go over the same point and will sextile Pluto again. And then when she goes forward in May, it means that stuff that you're working on in a relationship may take a little time. We may have an idea and then kind of have to rethink it and then go forward. This is particularly relevant for folks that have something around 2 degrees of Aries or Aquarius, and you know who you are. When it comes to, again, it's not great for luxury items because of Venus in Aries and retrograding and so on. But when it comes to business deals and things like that, it doesn't, it should promise pretty good outcome. But again, you could think that, what gets started in February may not really get anywhere until you are in until you're at really the end of May. And then, and we have some tense times coming up with the eclipses in March, and there's all sorts of, and the sign change. We're going to have Neptune going into Aries. That's a big deal. We have a lot of stuff coming down the pike. So it's not so bad that even if our enthusiasm is a little bit held back right now, we still have the promise that when we get a little bit deeper into the spring, that things are, and I'm being very northocentric here, but once we get to the spring, it looks very much like things are going to ease out a bit, and we'll have a little bit better, chance of going forward without having lots of without having different drags upon us. And Jupiter's going to get into Cancer, which is a good thing. Lots of stuff coming up. But yeah, indeed, it doesn't mean that what happens now is valueless, that it's not important, that it's not significant in anything, whether it's career, business, whether it's romance. It's not that it doesn't matter. It's not that it's unimportant. It's going to be a process to get from where we are. And even heading in the right direction, which we might be doing by now. If you're heading in the right direction, still in all, there might have to be revisions that are coming up in the next couple of months, and maybe some changes due to all of the things that are happening. Of course, at the collective level, it's and whatever happens happens. I don't think the astrology can keep up with that. But I at the personal level, a little bit of ease. I think especially when Jupiter goes direct, you'll really be feeling a little bit more of the flow. That's particularly important, of course, if you are ruled by Jupiter. That is, if your sun, or even more so, if your ascendant sign is Sagittarius. And so if you're a Sag or Sag rising, this is going to feel good to get moving, because Jupiter doesn't love being in Gemini, but he's really not crazy about going backwards in Gemini. And he's going to be going forward. He's heading towards his favorite sign of Cancer, which is going to get to in June. So if you are a Sag rising, this is going to feel better. This should really help. Should also remark that as we get to the weekend, retrograde Mars in Cancer is going to be making a trine to Saturn in Pisces. I didn't go back and figure out the last time that this happened. It would have been sometime long about October, November. Things that get started at that point in time that didn't do so well, they're up for reconsideration. You may take back an action that happened around that time, and it'll be really when Mars goes forward in the springtime and goes over, and that trine to Saturn becomes like a positive push, that something that began, way back last fall will actually get moving. So if you've got something that was, on the table right around October, November, action oriented, and it kind of flubbed, yeah, I think that this might be an opportunity to get things moving again, but not quite yet, but you might have to do a little work on it. All right. That's plenty of things for a week. That's plenty of things for a week. You got to get going, because we are 11% of the way through 2025. And if you're going to accomplish anything, I mean, time is ticking. On the other hand, I feel it's important to say you don't have to accomplish anything. You don't need to do anything. You don't need to prove anything. You just need to be. And the more you focus on just being, and the less you focus on accomplishing something and doing something, the better you'll be, the happier you'll be. Right? It's not a race. You got to get some stuff done. I mean, Lord knows dinner has to get on the table. But, you know, you don't have to think like, what am I going to do and where am I going to be? It's not this you Be where you are.